listening to Truth or Dare to Share by Ambitiously Intuitive.
Welcome to this episode of Truth or Dare to Share, where we are talking about practical magic. So just as a quick reminder, we do this in 3 acts. Act 1 is giving our reaction to the story. Act 2, we're going to ask each other some questions. And Act 3, we play the game Truth or Dare, where we essentially make the movie about ourselves, asking the question, what truth do you want to share about ourselves that's similar to Sally and Chili's story, played by Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. And we're really excited that there's probably going to be a practical magic too, if the odds work out in our favor. Cynthia, do you want to give your reaction to practical magic?
I love this movie. It actually had been like a year since I watched it. So we watched it yesterday and today. And I love the characters. I love their relationship. And I want to be a witch.
That's the key takeaway.
Yes, I want to be a witch. What did you think?
I think anybody who, when they were little, wanted to be a witch, loved this movie growing up. We were just reading fun facts or things you didn't know about practical magic, and apparently all witches that exist co-sign practical magic, despite the witch consultant who wanted more money and essentially told the director he didn't get it, that she was going to curse the movie, and he paid for an exorcism. So I'm still processing that piece of information. I loved it as a kid. There were so many things that went over my head that every time I rewatch it as an adult, which, you know, Halloween is right around the corner, hence why we chose this movie as a rewatch. But yeah, I really loved Sandra Bullock. I think the movie that came out, or they came around the same time, was Practical Magic and Hope Floats.
Oh, I love Hope Floats.
Yeah, maybe we need to do that at some point. But just Sandy Bullock in the 90s was just peak childhood for me. And yeah, I loved the sisterly bond. I loved Stockard Channing in this movie.
Yeah.
And also just the eyeliner that Stockard Channing wears, the fashion, the sisterly bond, midnight margaritas. So it's an evergreen piece of content that I'll probably rewatch every year. That, yeah, there's so many things I can say about practical magic.
Yeah. And I also, I read the 2 prequels to Practical Magic, and I love them. And we actually, as we were reading about the facts, is that they might eventually make magic lessons into a show, which would be amazing. I love that one.
So this is where we can go into Act 2. And I think I actually stopped at Truth and didn't explain Dare, but I think that we're enough episodes in that I think by now people understand what Truth or Dare is. But we'll go into Act 2. And I think the first question I'm going to ask you, I have not read any of the books. What is the difference or some of the main call outs between the book and the movie?
Well, it's been a long time since I read Practical Magic. I only recently, last year, read the 2 prequels. And each of those books are about a different period of time. So it's like 1600s, and then it's the 70s.
Okay.
So I really, really liked the Magic Lesson. I think it's called Magic Lessons, the one that's based in the 70s. It's really good.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, but in the little research that I did into things you didn't know about practical magic, I know that the ants have a brother. They said
Jet.
Yeah, they said it's a little bit darker, that the director of the movie made the movie a bit lighter, and that it focuses more on Sally's daughters, which, when we were looking again at the actresses, Evan Rachel Wood, when she's younger, it's just, the cast is perfect.
Yeah.
We were looking up the ages, guessing, because when you watch movies as an adult, and I'm assuming this applies to a lot of people, you feel like they're still older than you, even though we're now at the same age as these characters.
Yeah.
Who did you feel when you watched it when you were little versus now? Who did you see yourself the most in?
Probably Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
I mean, Sally. I mean, I just feel like she's so homey. I don't know.
Yeah, when I was younger, saw myself as Sally, and now that I watch it when I'm older, I see myself more in Nicole Kidman, because I can see somebody bullying, like how all of the women in the town, like, don't want Sally on the phone tree. I would be the friend to like come in and put my friend at the top of the food tree and be like, yeah, that was me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what questions did you have while you had a rewatch? I know that you took some down in your handy dandy notebook.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, well, this goes to the end of the book, or the end of the movie, how Maria's blood basically ends the curse, right? So,
Mhm.
do we think that the curse is really over? I guess only Alice Hoffman would really know, but
Well, when we were doing a rewatch, we were watching this actually in preparation while getting all the equipment set up because Cynthia and I are still trying to figure out, do we look at you? Do we look at each other? The short answer is both. As we were watching it, one thing that the lead character says, the sheriff, that's what I'm going to call him for right now because his name is escaping me, when he says to her, you know, curse is only real if you believe in it, and I don't believe in curses. I wonder if people talk about generational curses, and clearly there was an issue with the man that she was in love with was connected to Maria being put to death and like didn't help raise the baby that she had, that all of these women knew what they're essentially their great great grandfather did to them, so they ended up not trusting them.
yeah.
And so how, like in Murphy's law, the more likely you are, the more you fear something, the more likely that something is to happen. So was there an actual curse, or did these women just
They were so worried about it.
they were so worried about it that it ended up coming into fruition? And then as soon as Sally, she wrote down and essentially manifested her partner, thinking that, yeah, this would be my dream guy, a guy who can flip pancakes or ride a horse backward, has one green eye and one blue, that like what's that phenomenon that when you look for something, like if you think of a red car, then a red car is more likely to appear.
Yeah.
So it's like if you think the world is terrible, then the world is going to be terrible. If you think that good things are going to happen to you, that they've found some sort of, what do you call it, scientific validation into those theories. And so, yeah, I think that both are true, that it probably existed, but then it perpetuated, or it continued to exist because they all believed in it.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think that that's true. I think that honestly, I was just thinking, like you were talking about, you know, how he said that I don't believe in the curse, so it's not real. But I think that the power of their bond as sisters it really did break the curse, because it's now their blood and they were accepting that it was theirs. So I think that that's part of that too.
What were your favorite parts?
Oh gosh, I guess the last part when all the women from the phone tree come, and like I actually was tearing up a little bit because it's like they're all working together to come together as a community and help and support in a time of need. So.
That part makes me tear up every single time when Jillian just wants Jimmy to take her. She's like, he just wants me, only me. And they made this promise that they were going to die at the exact same time. And that's funny. Like I argue with friends. I'm like, no, you're going to die first. No, I am. Like, no, I don't want to live without you. So I'm going to go. And so that they had decided that. And then the pact that they made when Jillian first left of your blood, my blood, our blood, and how it just shows like the power of all these women who get together. And I remember reading an article recently about how women have been doing this for thousands of years, where they get together. And I think the first time I was exposed to that was when I read The Red Tent, that when it was women all on their cycle, that they would be banned like to this tent together, and how we've always done things in groups. And the movie just portrays that beautifully.
Absolutely. I did have another question that you just made me think of. So, you know how Sally in the beginning of the movie, she basically writes down all of these things, the random things.
Yeah.
So what would you, as a child, could you have created a list for yourself when you were, 9, 10 years old?
Probably, maybe. I don't know. I think that I have the creativity and the foresight. I just wonder, would that list be the same as it is now? We were talking earlier about our childhood crush, and I think my list would have just described Evan Sawa. And I recently saw him in the show that I want to talk about at some point, in Hacks. He's with Jean Smart's character, and they hook up. And I was like, that guy looks really familiar, really attractive. Like, where do I know him from? And I Googled it and it was Devon Sawa. So he has aged very well. But yeah, my qualities would have described Casper.
Oh my
Or
goodness.
he also played in Little Giants. And I really like, even when I play fantasy football, my name in my fantasy football league is Icebox and has been for years because I just copy paste because I still like wanted to
Yeah.
be that girl in that movie because Casper was or
Yeah.
Devon Sawa was the love interest.
Also
We should move
Now
on
and
from
Then.
Devon Sawa
But
and
also
Now and
Now and
Then.
Then.
Yeah.
I loved him in Now and
If
Then.
anybody's listening to this, let us know if we should talk about Now and Then,
Yeah.
Casper, or Little Giants.
Oh, I love that one too.
Or all
Yeah.
three.
Yeah. The 90s nostalgia for
Well,
sure.
what would you have written down? Same question back to you.
When I was 9 or 10, I have no idea. I was trying to think of like what I would have, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
What
don't
would you
know.
have written
Yeah,
down? I know that I've done this exercise recently and it was a long list,
yeah.
but it was mostly internal. And actually, even if you think about it, other than the one green eye, one blue, she wrote down all these things that he could do that insinuated he was a good person or was well-rounded. And that's
Yeah.
where I would commend little Sally in Practical Magic is that she didn't say anything superficial. It wasn't he needs to be 6'5", brown eyes, trust fund finance.
Yeah.
It was cute. It was a sweet moment. What's another favorite part? You know, I'm going to keep saying Midnight Margaritas.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously is so. I think also when Sally goes to rescue Jilly, I think that that's also really great. I mean, obviously it's a little bit intense situation and then she drugs the guy and then, you know.
Yeah, and that's something that even though we recently talked about It Ends With Us, which is also centered around being in a toxic relationship, that I appreciate about this movie is that you felt the sisterly bond, that felt like a side story. It wasn't, and I'm not saying that certain stories like It Ends With Us need to have like this more of a blatant storytelling, but it was about like these women bonding together to get rid of that toxicity and that you can always return home.
Yeah.
You can always return to your family.
Yeah, absolutely. She saves her.
So. Yeah. Who do you think would be in a Practical Magic cast if it were remade today? I really don't know how I feel about remakes. I'm okay with a part 2.
I would say Jennifer Lawrence would be so funny and so great. I think that would be.
Can we get Jennifer Lawrence and Emma Stone?
Oh my God, that would be so good. Really funny for sure.
So I'm going to reference some questions that I have. This is the one at the top, which is, if you could brew a potion to solve one life problem, what would it fix? And what would be your secret ingredient?
Oh my goodness. I just want to win the lotto. That's really, but no, I guess, so cliche, but some sort of world peace or like for harmony or something like this.
You're making me think of Miss Congeniality, Sandra Bullock again, when the answer that he asks every single contestant says world peace. And she's like, more restrictions on firearms. Yeah, world peace.
Yeah, just harmony, really, I think would be best. My secret ingredient, I don't know. I was just thinking of the toads.
You think a toad is going to lead to world peace? That's the secret ingredient.
Well, in the movie, that's the toads were like, what was the bad thing that was leaving, right? They're just leaving it behind.
Yeah. I would say for world peace or for harmony, my instinct is that it has something to do with music. I don't know. It's a deep question. I don't even know what my answer to that one would be. And I don't know if I can give an answer that's less, anything that I say would come across as selfish. Because I was thinking,
I'm a lotto, man.
Well, yeah, that was the first instinct.
Yeah.
And if there is a secret ingredient, maybe confidence, trust. Because I think that sometimes you think of things that are tangible. Maybe it's an intangible. That's the secret ingredient.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It just makes me think of Frozen.
Yeah. This is one that we haven't talked about where we grazed or glazed, whatever the right word is a little bit, which is the judgment from the townspeople. Like the kids are screaming, witch, you're a bitch. And we've talked about bullying when we talked about Mean Girls. But one of the questions that came up around this was, I guess without getting into too much specificity, but they're judged for being different. And so, have you ever felt like an outsider? And how can people turn that into something that's empowering?
Well, I definitely think I have felt like an outsider from time to time, you know. I think in this case, though, I think that people are always afraid of things that they don't understand.
That's true.
And I think that the mystery and, everything around them, and also they sort of held power too, right? And that's
Mhm.
people want that. And I think that that's part of this. But um, well, I forgot the question already because I was thinking about multiple
How do
things.
you feel that if feeling like an outsider, how can that be something that's empowering?
Oh, I think too that sometimes, you know, being different's okay. And that's actually what gives you uniqueness and who you are and standing in that.
Yeah, I definitely felt like an outsider. And when I've reconnected with people from my childhood and they make comments about how they perceived me and they never would have guessed that I felt like an outsider. But I will say that my mom was really good about reinforcing self-confidence throughout the majority of my life. And usually I could talk to her, talk to my sister, and they would help me convert that into something empowering. And I think that it was demonstrated really well with Sally because she didn't want to practice magic and
Yeah.
how outside influence can make you feel less than. And she just like all she wanted to do was be normal. And there was a quote that I wrote down that one of the aunts said, and she says to Sally, normal is not a virtue, it rather denotes a lack of courage. And I just
Yeah.
like, oh, that still hits.
She
Like,
didn't want to stand in her power,
yeah,
which is sad, because she could have been harnessing all of that power and energy and magic
yeah,
into her kids too, because her kids wanted to experience it and she didn't want them to.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it also makes me think about it going back to the Midnight Margarita scene when Francis and Jet, I think those are the two aunts' names, and they figure out that there's something brewing and they're not being honest with them. And then they leave a protection with the Maria's hanging rope with the kids. They're like,
yeah,
don't take this off while we're gone. We're going to let you figure it out. What they say to Sally is you can't you can't have one foot in and one foot out. You can't be
yeah,
practicing magic but also judge it at the same time. And so you watch Sally go through this transformation of being so afraid of repeating, I guess, like it being in the same situation as her mother, where
yeah,
she died of a broken heart and had an issue with men. So she's like, I'm just not going to fall in love. Obviously, she loses her first husband, which thank you, Faith Hill, for writing and or creating the song This
yeah,
Kiss, because that song still hits. And Sandra Bullock running to him in cowboy
yeah.
boots and jean
So cute.
shorts. It's a perfect scene. But yeah, and then her having to embrace it out of necessity when Jillian's in this toxic relationship. And then by the end that she realizes she can have it all when it comes to her sisterly bond, jumping off the roof, the townspeople embracing them. So in like embracing your inner power as opposed to trying to conceal it, it's gonna create more issues than just accepting yourself for who you are.
I love that. Yeah, I think that that's a lot of it. I also, this made me think about how the fact is that she, when it came to her sister, she was willing to use her power,
Mm-hmm.
but for herself, she was not. So,
Yeah, and it's so natural that sometimes she doesn't even know she's doing it. When he's interviewing all the townspeople and they're saying that they're witches, and he walks into her store and she's stirring her coffee, and then she starts talking to that guy, and it keeps stirring,
yeah,
and then it's like so inherent in her. And so, how often do we have maybe not that blatant of power, but some sort of inner power that we temper because we don't want to be judged by other people?
yeah, sure.
What other questions come to mind?
Those were the only two I had. I was trying to think of something else, but
Well, I was looking at the key themes. So, what would you say are the big learning lessons? We've talked about embracing who you are, sisterly bonds. Any other key themes come to mind?
yeah, I would definitely say community and how important women and community is to help one another, and also just in the time of need, the aunt was like, oh, is there anybody we could call to come help us? And they were like, the phone tree. And then all these women who didn't want her to be at the top of the phone tree are now helping her. And I think that that was really powerful too. And how important in our own lives women and our friends are in our community to when we need help and support.
I love that.
Yeah.
Last question, and then if you don't have any more, we can go into truth or dare. But going into breaking a generational curse, the Owen sisters break a generational curse. What is one negative pattern in your life that you're actively working to break?
Well, I've said this before. This year, I'm really working on being present. And it takes a lot of effort, I feel like, to not, think of the past, think of the future, and just be in where you are. And so that's something that I've been really working on.
Cool. I'm about to start a book called The Presence Process. I brought it up to you before. I started it and stopped it, but that is on my list of things to do, which actually the presence process, the guy who wrote it would call me out because you're technically not supposed to advertise it, and talks about how living in the future, living in the past is really just ways of creating drama. And the present moment, there can't be any drama because you're right now.
Yeah.
I would say I have been working on and I'm continuing to work on recreating my morning routine, because usually I would say if morning is Q1, like I wake up grumpy from dreaming the night before and I'm just like automatically tense in the morning. And then by like the mid-afternoon, I'm like, okay, everything's cool. And then later on in the day, I'm like, everything's great. By the time I go to sleep, I'm very happy, but I have to go through this every single day. And I want to wake up and already feel at peace. And so I've made a lot of progress here, especially with like prioritizing getting 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Amina, one of our co-hosts who joined some episodes, and my friend lives in Amsterdam. She had me years ago read Why We Sleep. And you and I were talking earlier today about things that the pandemic taught us, and it taught me to prioritize rest, because mornings will be easier if I have the balance between overcommitments and thinking that I need productivity to equate to some sense of value, and just I can't go and do those things if I don't have the right rest. And so I would say it all comes back to homeostasis and balance.
Yeah.
Should we go on to truth or dare? Any other thoughts
Yeah.
on practical magic?
One of the aunts says there's a little witch in all of us, and I think that's true. Tell my kids that they're witches.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that labeling is really just about personal power.
Yeah. Well, I think about it too. When I was a kid, I used to want to be a witch so much. Like I remember we used to, at our sleepovers and all these things, we used to do little rituals and spells, and which are really right. We've talked about this, affirmations.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this cup, which is a gift from a friend, says, by being yourself, you put something wonderful into this world that was not there before. And isn't that perfect for the lesson that Sally learns? And I absolutely want to be a witch when I was younger. My friends in second grade can confirm. I had a seance for my second grade birthday.
Yeah.
So Helen can confirm that. And thank you to the friends who showed up for that. There was one friend who came in a full get up. Yeah. And then I think in fourth or fifth grade, I dressed up as a gypsy. So very, very into all things magical. Cool. Well, we'll move on to Act 3 and play the game Truth or Dare. So after rewatching the movie Practical Magic, are you going to choose Truth or Dare?
I guess Dare. So I'm going to say that, the whole idea about community and women and asking for help, I really struggle with asking for help. And so one of the things that I'm trying to work on also is, asking for help in little ways instead of, when it's a really big, because I don't do that very often. And I think that this movie shows how important and how helpful that can be for you.
I love that. Cool. I think I'm going to choose, it's probably a truth and a dare. I think that there was a time, and I brought up Amina earlier, and her and I were talking about this when we were looking into the power of affirmations and letting go of limiting beliefs. And I would say that when I was younger, the reason I aligned, and I think a lot of people align with Sally so much, is because they want to blend in. And that's why I really love that quote about like the normal quote, that in my past, I wouldn't even call it a fear of failure. It was a weird fear of success. And so what I would dare myself to do is like just to embrace myself the way that I am without judgment. And you find that the more that you talk about that, and probably one of the impetus behind you and I talking about this podcast a year ago and manifesting it and bringing it into fruition, was like caring less about what other people think, because everybody at some point or another feels very similarly. And the more that you talk about it, the more that other people realize like we all have this tendency to judge ourselves. And the reason we judge other people is because of self-judgment. And so the more that we embrace like who we are, you're going to find your people, your tribe, your coven, dare I say, of people just like you. So yeah, I want to dare myself to bring that back to light and talk about it more and just be who I am, because, you know, without getting super deep, like life is short. So what's the point of trying to blend in and be normal?
It's fair. It's fair.
Cool. Any final
Yeah.
thoughts on Practical Magic, Sandy Bullock, Nicole Kidman, the hopes of Practical Magic 2?
Oh, I can't wait. I hope it comes out. I hope that it happens.
Same.
Sure.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening. See you next time on Truth or Dare to Share. Appreciate you. Like, follow, share, all the above. Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Truth or Dare to Share by Ambitiously Intuitive.